literally stomping around down there, and that's really fun. Okay, so our next concern is, in the piano part, the thematic material repeats often, possibly sounding repetitive, if orchestrated the same way throughout, right? So, I mean, here's the interesting thing, is that you actually have two separate approaches here. It seems the same in a lot of ways, but you're jumping up the octave. Like, first you start off with everything just really just pounding away, you know, and kind of lower down in your lower winds and your strings, and this, you know, kind of stomping around bass right in here. And then here, like, you change the bass, and you throw in brass in the middle, right? And then you get your strings and your winds out of the way. That's very, very cool. I don't think you need to leap the, I think, like, right at this point, probably the bass clarinet would be better off doubling, say, you know, this from an octave higher or something like that, or working alongside the, I don't know, maybe the same thing with the bassoons. Don't jump the bassoons up necessarily, but
Вот это есть он самый. Шиша денег не дает.
so they can do something lower down that doesn't get blasted out of existence by the trombones. Okay. All right, so the question is, does this orchestration work? Well, okay, hang on. Let me get rid of that. Okay. Yeah, so this is A. This probably was just, you know, Command R you might have done by accident on that part. Well, you know, I mean, it's very powerful scoring. And I mean, I really love the density of it, you know. Sorry, use the word density, and immediately my mind flashes to Back to the Future. You are my density. Yeah, you know, the thing is, I'm not sure how useful the E-flat clarinet is down here, like if it's really doing anything very much special. Maybe you could be using it to sort of fill in the hole, you know, like you've got a bit of a gap, right? Nobody's playing E below B here, right? It's just being played as a grace note. The other parts are sort of stepping out of the way. I think that's where you could put your E-flat clarinet, is just playing octaves with the piccolo. Okay. And, you know, if you just really want that shoving sound, then yeah, get rid of the grace notes, get rid of the accent staccato, put in some tenuto. Right? And this is really fun right in here. Percussion, what percussion instrument? I think you meant to say snare drum, right? Because, like, the default is snare drum, and if you were listening to your own mock-up, and it was cool with you what you were hearing, then I assume that was intended to be snare drum, right? So snare drum, cymbals, tambourine, bass drum, and so on. So that all works for me. Okay, plus timpani. Yeah, so, and then here you got a buzz roll. So I wouldn't be throwing in a buzz roll on a concert piece like this. It's a different kind of a feeling. You know, you're letting the drum heads, you're letting the heads of the drumsticks, the tips of the drumsticks bounce as you move, you know, as you apply them over and over, back and forth between the hands, right? So that's
Значит, ну никакого нету у
just
тебя,
a standard
открытого у
one.
тебя
So maybe
никакой нету.
you were doing this for like an effect, just like in order to hear the roll better, because sometimes like buzz roll, the buzz roll response in some mock-ups, some sound sets has a more satisfying sound. So that actually happened with another entry. Somebody was using buzz roll all over the place, and they had forgotten to change it back to a standard kind of tremolo beat. Yeah, and I think you're using the plus sign over the cymbals as almost like to mute it or something like that. I think you could just say secco, so fortissimo secco, and then you can get rid of the plus signs. Okay, all right, so I love the way this is sort of digging in the dirt right here, right? But I think like the bassoons sort of need to stay low, and so does the bass clarinet. I don't think you should jump them up. You've got you're basically taking this part. So maybe your lower instruments, instead of just sticking to this pattern, can start helping out the new pattern that is emerging. And then it would, like, then you don't have these octaves fighting so much. I mean, like, I understand you're on B, B, and then walking up, right? So it's sort of walking up from here, but it's just a little weird, right? I think you can, so a B, okay, a B, E, B, C, and A kettle. See, so I think you could go B, C here in your kettles. I think that would be a cool score. Okay, so now, yeah, you jump up the octave. I think that works great in kind of like your middle winds coming in as, you know, higher English horn, E flat clarinet. It's perfectly fine. See, this is what it should have been doing before. The B flat clarinets, it's all good. And the brass is really, really fun. No problems there. So, yeah, then you can throw in some xylophone too. Yeah, that's the bit. Okay, so just get rid of the slurs, right? Or put a big slur over it. Right, okay. I think this would pretty much work. Just like two in each hand. Yeah, it's all good. You don't need an extra slur right now. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. Very fun. Okay, so here's where we start getting into problems. Okay, the second concern: melodic development soaring quite high, accompaniment figures covering a wide range, and so on. Right. So, like the original accompaniment figures are, you know, it's we're missing that energy, right? And so I would just say, go back to the piano score, take a look at the left hand in that section, just the wonderful vitality of it, right? And like here, you've got so much thickening of the melody. You've got this massive unison here, which turns into octaves going forwards, and then a triple octave here, and then here you're like going into counterpoint, which is kind of fun, actually. I mean, I really love the counterpoint, especially back here. It's very cool.
Ну, типа, надо играть там.
All right, so here, like, here we got a problem, right? You're going all the way up to D. This is D above the top C of the piano, right? And here you're just suddenly leaping the octave and going to the highest D. So the high D, the ottava D here, for your flutes, is totally playable. It's not the most musical note. It's not the nicest note, but it's okay. Like, and here, like, you're keeping your strings down. You're keeping your violins from going up to a very squeaky place. That's fine. Okay, so like with all respect, I feel that you are reversing what needs to happen. Okay, I think that the flutes need to be like this. Okay, and flutes don't need to read ottava. Okay, so I think you can have the flutes like this, and you can have the piccolo like this. Okay, and then if you want to, you could drop these two pitches, right, just to kind of make it a little more tasteful. And then, of course, there's no need for the E flat clarinet to have this ottava over it at all, right? It should be like this, right? And then I think that works really, really well. Okay, so I'm going to reverse everything that I just did, and then talk about what's the possible problem. My issue here is that not only are you going just shriekingly high, you are taking away any kind of excitement. See, like here is where the D is. So take away the octave. Here is the actual D that is in the piano score, right? That is top D for the actual piano, right? That's the highest D that you can get to. And for the piano score, it's really exciting because the pianist is taking the audience's ear way up to the, you know, just the highest D that it can play, right? So by having the piccolo play really high before that, right, and it's also true of this leading into here, which I'll talk about in a minute. By having the piccolo is really just kind of giving the game away, right? So there's no, like, once you have had this played so high, there's really just no excitement over reaching up for that high D. Right? It's taking away all of the wonderful upward momentum. If you've already heard those high notes on piccolo, right? So by dropping them down an octave, by dropping them down an octave, it's okay. This is not the most it's not the most audible part, but at least you get this beautiful run up to here, right? And then as far as the flute is concerned, this is pretty much invisible, right? I was saying that this might be invisible too, and especially if you bring up the flute like I'm about to recommend. But like if you've got A2 oboes playing this right here, and you've got E flat clarinet also playing it, then really the flutes are not going to be all that audible until they start to get to F and G, and then E, F, G, A, and so on. So look, what if you got it like this, as I was saying, to sort of reverse what was happening before. And that way you've got the piccolo doubling the flutes, right? And then here you can just like, do that if you want to, and then have the rest of it come down, or even like this. So the piccolo is still doubling these three notes, but you've got these two in here, which are easier to play, right? Or just they're not so weird. And then of course, E flat clarinet. Let's get rid of this ottava, right? So I feel that this is really workable, right? It has more. It maintains that beautiful curve. It doesn't give away these high Ds. It all works really well together, and it also is nicely supported by this kind of contrapuntal rise right in here. All right, so jumping to the next part. Once again, I feel you're giving the game away and it's even worse in this situation because you've got this, like here's the piano score, right? It's right. It's just running up to this high E. And so, like, if all of this stuff is happening really high, this is fine. But if this part here is happening very, very high, like, what's the big deal about running up to E now? Right? I mean, who cares, right? Because we've already heard even higher pitches. We've heard E and F and G, right? And here you're already running up to E, so it feels like you're running up to E twice. All right, so here's my recommended change. Just drop this an octave. Right? So it doesn't matter if there's doubling here in the flute, that's fine. And then you go, and then here, this drop is disguised by the beautiful, perfect straight line on top. Right? So like it's the other thing. It's like when you have this drop, instead of everybody running up, you feel the drop. You feel the slump in the line. Right? The only player that's not slumping, once again, we don't need. Okay. We don't need this over the violin part. Okay, and just one thing to think about, just a side note, like if you really are sending the players up to a readable E for them, okay, if they're pros, then it really is underlining the consequences, right? You are going up into this territory, it has consequences. Sticking an ottava over it disguises those consequences for the orchestrator, right? That like it's like, oh yeah, I'm getting an ottava over my right hand parts all the time. I'll just go on with this, and like not think about the fact that really stacking up the ledger lines like this, even if it is playable, there are consequences. In this case, the consequences are like getting a kind of a screechy sound, right? And that's fine, like it's okay. You've got the piccolo doubling and everything else, but still, right? But just look at how many instruments drop down a seventh here, right? So that drop is going to be felt like a slump, right? So you don't have that beautiful, perfect line going straight up. So back to my recommendations here. All right, so that disguises this, right? And then here, you do not have to drop down until here, right? And then that keeps things staggered, right? And then you've got this, the oboes could actually see, like you've already got this You've got the E flat clarinet in here.
Чё?
Yeah, and then you've got another drum here in the bass clarinet and in the bassoons. So anyways, so I'm not going to go through and fix every part, but just to let you know,
Ну, вот
try
это
to
есть
stagger
самое.
some of these, and you know, in the case of the oboes, so you can go all the way to that E with no problem at all, right? And yeah, best to drop the, I mean, well, you know, the English horn could run up to that B, no problem, right? There's almost no need. Right here I said I wasn't going to do it, not doing it. So you could easily throw in that B. That works, right? And here you've got your two clarinets in B flat. This could, you know, running up to that high F is possible, right? And as for the bass clarinet and so on, like, you know, what you could do here is this, right? And then it's, you know, it's all kind of more in a straight line. So anyway, so just, I know I'm just sort of chopping the heck out of your piece, and I really apologize for that. But, you know, at least you're not sending your trumpet up to high E, right? Okay, so so I just think it's really, really fun, and I love the, you know, I love like how you're kind of pounding away at this B down here, and you know, and the bass is very, very stompy scoring, but it's still very, very fun. And I love the way that the bassoons and the brass are doing the bam 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 thing right in here. That's so cool. It just really gives some vitality. The bass clarinet in there as well, and so on. So you know, so like if you're going to have this sort of leaping scoring in here, you got da da da. You know, why can't we have the stuff happening right in here that is in the original left hand? Right. So I challenge you, David, to go and put it back in. All right. And now, let's get to this part right in here. So there's a concern in my evaluation criteria. Upper middle register continues on relentless if no textural contrast to the previous passage. And, you know, you do have a textural contrast, right? Now, one thing that I would say to really maintain that, put this down. Right? So everybody's running up and then dropping down. Because like where does the next phrase start? It starts here.
Так надо платно играть просто и все, да.
Get rid of this stuff. Right, and especially here, you don't need it. Here, I would say. This is weird. So, oh, I see what's going on. So this was meant to be. Right. Okay. So that should go like this. Totally readable. And as far as this is concerned, I would say do this. Boom. Okay, so that solves that problem. And then right here, you can go back to bass clef. If you want to, or you can. No, it's all right. It's too much fiddling around. So yeah, so you can just throw that in there, or even put in a treble clef. Some cellists prefer. Okay, so let me get back to this. All right, so yeah, so just make sure that you're going.
Нет, сайт
And then 2, 3, 1, 2 and 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and 1. So you probably wouldn't want this here, right? So like you don't. It's not that you're going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 and 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and 1. It's really 1, 2, 3, 1, 2 and 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and, right? So I would say like you don't feel obligated to do this kind of thing, right? It's more this is more in character, right? Making these into a little group that plays across the bar line. Anyways, yeah, still really fun though. I love the brass in here, the energy of it, and yeah, just like the dun. It's very cool coming from English horn and second bassoon, middle strings, very, very nice. Yeah, so before I go on to
Наоборот,
this next
значит,
part,
да, вот
which is
это
really
наверное,
delightful.
да.
Just want to say just a general thing. Do you notice how just like you have got, like if there's a relentless thing about these first 16 bars, it is double bass and low brass all the way, fortissimo, the whole thing,
Наоборот,
right?
да.
So,
Да,
so
вот.
you know, and contrabassoon, right?
Ну,
So
да.
you have got a heavy footprint at the beginning.
А,
So,
ну, да, есть.
so think about, you know, like
Ну,
if you're
да,
going
да.
to come in lighter, lightweight,
Ну,
more
наоборот,
lightweight
наоборот,
here,
да.
could you cut the
Мгм.
contra and the double bass?
Да, да,
Right?
да.
And then just gradually introduce it here, or maybe just hold off on it till you get to here, right? Or maybe just have it start to come in
Наоборот,
right
значит, да.
here. You know, and then maybe when you get to here, you could reduce the weight a little bit somehow, right? So just, you know, just some options to think about. And then we get to yeah, da, 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 and this is so cool. Like you have like these, like you have the entrance, and then you have the next entrance, and the next entrance on top of that. Just awesome. Okay. So fortissimo, diminuendo, and then what happens here, right? And so
Вот это
fortissimo,
да.
diminuendo here, but not here, right? So what are the dynamics of all of these entrances? You have to think about it, because like the pizzicato is not going to play itself, right? It needs to know that the players need to know how loud they are going to be, especially like since on the next page you have like mezzo forte and forte.
Не знаю, мне не надо, мне не
dynamics.
надо.
So let's take a look at that.
Я тебе еще раз говорю, я с удовольствием балетную музыку поучусь играть за ваш счет. Поучу играть себя, да. Понимаете, да. Ну я шучу же, поучу играть себя.
I would say like
Да.
this will be all about the horns,
Ну да.
right? Don't sing
Не
that
болеет.
song.
Я тебе еще даже, я тебя обрадую,
It will be
всегда
all
в
about
мире
the
так оно и
horns
происходит,
right here,
понимаешь?
and
Потому что если ты учишься чему-то бесплатно,
you
тут
know,
не видно,
like,
да?
if you just want
Потому
some
что вот смотри,
support
какая версия, да? Ну это не
for
версия,
your
как бы, а вот
strings
я тебе
writing
просто
here,
про
then
действительность
it's
говорю,
for
так, ты можешь как бы соглашаться или нет,
you'll have a
но оно
better
все равно так, да.
syncing.
Если ты учишься чему-то бесплатно,
Support.
ну то есть как бы не речевое, то есть ну типа учеба ради учебы, да, типа универ ради универа, а не дело, ну короче, да, понимаешь, они ничего не производя, кроме учебы, которая учебой погоняет и в учебе сидит, как бы, да, то это скорее всего не полезно, то есть это какая-то не мужская деятельность, и то есть, ну ты понимаешь, как она говорит, ну она про тебя и говорит так, да. Да. Вот поэтому надо найти в этом какой-то толк, как-то это вот соединять. В принципе, оно так вот и устроено, да. Ну, наверное, да. Понимаешь. Задача университета, есть такая задача, но это большие громоздкие организации, да, которые от своих денег не откажутся. Поэтому в их интересах пассивных, да, то есть как бы, да, недвижимых таких, да, чтобы все оставалось на своих местах, да, чтобы все учились и немножко недоученные были. Да, понимает. Ну, да, типа того, да. Ну да, ничего не умели делать, да, типа того, да. Ну вот я понял уже, да. Ну да. Да, понимаешь. Ну да. В моих интересах будет. Да, ты правильно говоришь, наверное. Не то, что даже в моих, не в моих, мне похер, мне не до себя вообще, да. Ну, нет, тебе нужен подчиненный, который будет развитый, который сам, да, он развитый будет только сам, да, сам себя будет развивать, правильно, да. Да, это не раб какой-то, который там, да. Ну, если про человеческую особь мы с тобой говорим, а не про калькуляторы там. Ну, да. Ну, это как бы тренд такой, трендец. Я просто к чему говорю-то, да. Да, что так мир и устроен, что вот Стив Джобс пришел и за ваш счет начал учить себя производить телефоны вам, что ли? Производство телефонов или что там? Да, менеджменту. Может и так даже, да. Ну как-то да, это как-то сложно, да, я понимаю. Ну, нет, так не так, что ли? Так не работает это. Ну ладно, не Стив Джобс вообще. Ну вот ты вот как, да, то есть ты учишь себя чему, вот я тебе и про это и говорю. То есть как бы да, да, понимает она себя просто, да. Ну ладно, да наоборот, да. Да. И при этом это хорошо, то есть и при этом всем хорошо, это сам парадокс, понимаешь? Да, всем, да, понимает, это самое. Все выигрыши, и ты выигрыши, и производитель, и что самое главное, сам, да, он про тебя говорил, да. Ну вот, все, она себе так думает, просто, да. Ну да, наоборот, это, да. Ну нет, нет. Да. Ну балетная музыка, как бы, да. Ну да, ну то есть мы это просто так не называем. Да. Ну хорошо. Учеба ради учебы ты имеешь в виду. А я по-другому тебе говорю. Ты для чего играешь? Для людей. То есть для чего? Чтобы люди слушали и ценили это, наверное, чтобы они покупали. Что, я не знаю. Для чего ты играешь музыку? Ты ее не играешь, ты ее обучаешь только, правильно? То есть обучаешь, да. А для чего люди обучаются музыке, ради чего? Отсюда варианты. Для психоделики, для травмы, да, понимаю, да. Там, кстати, много вариантов может быть, да. Да, она поняла тебя. Просто вообще в целом, да, она поняла тебя, да. Да, да, типа да, вот, я понял уже просто. Да, да, я понял. Это нормальный вариант, понимаешь? Ну, тебе никто не сказал, что его очень просто достичь, или наоборот слишком просто достичь. Вот так все, в принципе, делают. Вот Курт Кобейн учился за ваш счет быть Куртом Кобейном, например. И тогда, ну, там, Бетховен за ваш счет учился быть Бетховеном, наверное, да? Композитором великим. Ну, да. Иначе не получается, понимаешь? Ну вот ты понимаешь меня, да, понимаю, да. Что-то здесь нечисто, если ты так в стол что-то пишешь, я этому не очень верю. Что-то здесь, а что люди это не любят это? Или ты не хочешь, чтобы люди... А, у тебя уже другая специальность, да, да. Ты как хочешь, я хочу, да. Ну да, вот он это имеет в виду. Ну да, ну да. Ну да. Ну, то же самое, но здесь все равно надо это делать, да. То есть, да, там как бы те же самые камни, в принципе, это то же самое, наверное. Да, я понял, что... Ну ладно, не суть разговора. Да. Ну, верно, это... Ой, ладно. Нет, он о себе так думает просто, да, да. Не, ну вот нет. Ладно, не надо. Ну, он о себе так думает. Неправильно только, да. Нет, вот ты устраиваешься, и за счет работодателя ты учишься работать свою работу. Он тебя научил работодатель, заплатил тебе за это деньги, и ты идешь, да, понимаешь. И ты такой, спасибо, очень, да, у вас очень хорошая организация. Я понимаю, да, это нормально. То есть, как бы, так оно и устроено в нормальности, как бы. И даже тут не имеет значения. Причем здесь тут женат ты или не женат, смотри. У меня есть какая-то квартира, куда я прихожу ночевать, и там я что-то там, и это у всех есть людей. Ну, хорошо, не, ну это другое, когда у тебя нету типа квартиры, и ты где-нибудь ночуешь в подсобке. Ну, тогда сложнее, да, надо что-то нормально делать как-то лучше, да, чтобы у тебя были деньги, чтобы снять квартиру. Типа, ну, то же самое. То есть, как бы просто ты, значит, плохо учишь, да, понимаю. Ты больше стараешься и начинаешь деньги получать какие-то, да, так. Типа того, да. Ну да, понимаю. Ну это уже твоя задача, понимаешь? Как бы, да, как да, понимаю. Ну да, ну понял я просто. Да. Ну да. Да. Ну да. Ну, наверное, да. Расширяться еще позволяет, расширяться. Понимаю, адвансер. Ну да. Наверное, не знаю. Ну да. Ну, да, понял, что я просто, да. Да. Ну да. Ну да, понял. Наверное, так это не почему. так, кстати. Ну это страшная очень версия, я тоже это говорил, да. То есть, понимает это. Да. Ладно, это не я говорю. Все хорошо. Что здесь? Ладно. Мастер.